Jungkook bursts into tears mid-concert after reading a letter from Jimin, but the shocking contents leave fans stunned and everything in ruins. Rain had never fallen harder inside a stadium. The roar of over 70,000 fans dimmed into a haunting silence the moment Jungkook sank to his knees, clutching the letter in his trembling hands. His mic lay forgotten at his side. The massive LED screens zoomed in on his face, his eyes wide, flooded, disbelieving. And then, a single sob escaped his throat, raw, uncontrolled, unfiltered. "Why would you write this, Jimin?" he whispered, voice breaking as his fingers tightened on the now creased paper. "Why now? Why here?" The band stopped playing. Taehyung froze mid-step. RM turned from the wings, alarm flashing across his face. And the crowd? The crowd held its breath, like a collective soul, awaiting judgment. Just minutes before, Jungkook had been laughing, bright, boyish, radiant, singing the final chorus of Still With You. He'd stepped to center stage to thank the fans when a backup dancer slipped a white envelope into his hand, nodding toward a staff member near the edge of the stage. Jungkook had opened it casually, and then everything changed. The paper trembled as he reread the final line, lips forming words no one else could hear. "I loved you more than I should have. And that's why I have to disappear before they destroy both of us." It wasn't just what was written, it was the handwriting. That familiar, slightly slanted script. The signature curled under the name like a whisper from the past. It was Jimin's. The same Jimin who hadn't been seen in public for weeks. The same Jimin who had gone silent on social media after rumors of an internal conflict with Hybe. The same Jimin whose absence from rehearsals had sparked theories the company was trying desperately to shut down. But no one expected this. Taehyung stepped forward cautiously, his hand brushing against Jungkook's shoulder. But Jungkook flinched, like the touch burned him. "He knew," Jungkook said hoarsely. "He knew they were going to bury us. And he didn't say anything." Taehyung's voice was steady, but strained. "What are you talking about, Jungkook?" Jungkook held the letter up to Taehyung's face, like it was a dagger. "Read it." He didn't. Instead, Taehyung knelt beside him, placing both hands firmly on Jungkook's shaking shoulders. "Not here," he said under his breath. "Please, the cameras." "It's too late," Jungkook said. "They've already seen everything." And he was right. The livestream feed had never been cut. Every tear, every staggered breath, every echo of his breaking voice had been transmitted worldwide. Armies watching from every corner of the planet had just witnessed Jungkook shatter in real time. The staff rushed in. Stage lights dimmed. RM tried to say something into his mic, but the words failed him. Jin, who had flown in unannounced for the concert, stepped in from the shadows and took charge, gently escorting Jungkook off stage as the screens cut to black. Backstage, the atmosphere was suffocating. Jungkook paced in circles in the green room, still gripping the letter like a life raft. The words echoed in his head, colliding with memories of shared hotel rooms, whispered dreams, late-night walks when the city was asleep and the stars didn't judge. He remembered Jimin's soft laugh when he teased him, the way his eyes crinkled when he was truly happy, and the moment everything began to change. A closed-door meeting at Hybe, a new contract clause, a warning from a manager not to get too close to anyone anymore. He ignored it. They both did. But that choice had a price. Jin walked in slowly and closed the door behind him. "Let me see it," he said gently. Jungkook handed him the letter, fingers reluctantly letting go. Jin read silently, eyes narrowing, lips tightening. When he finished, he folded the paper carefully and placed it on the table like a sacred relic. "He's not just leaving the group," Jin said. "He's cutting ties entirely." "No," Jungkook replied. "Not cutting. Being forced to. You read the part about the clause." Jin nodded slowly. Clause 13.3, non-disclosure of any romantic involvement that may damage public image or breach moral expectations, Jungkook scoffed bitterly. Since when was love immoral? Jin didn't answer, because they both knew this wasn't about love. It was about control, about optics, about how the world was ready to celebrate their success but not the truth that came with it. The door creaked open again. Taehyung entered, eyes grim. "I found something," he said, holding up his phone. "A private recording. Jimin left it in the Dropbox folder. It's audio only." Jungkook snatched the phone and pressed play. The voice that poured out cracked his heart further. "If you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I never meant to leave like this. But I had to choose. Between us or everything we built. And I was too weak to fight both. A sob caught in Jungkook's throat. I kept all your letters, even the one you never sent. His hands shook. That letter was hidden in his drawer at the dorm, sealed, written after their biggest fight, after Jimin accused him of choosing fame over truth. Jimin's voice continued, softer now. Don't hate me, Kook. But when they gave me a choice, they didn't really give me one at all. And just like that, the room went silent again. Taehyung looked away. Jin clenched his jaw, and Jungkook sat down, completely still. The next morning, Jungkook letter and Where is Jimin trended globally. Fans demanded answers. The media speculated wildly. Some claimed it was staged. Others believed it was the beginning of BTS's end. Hybe released a short statement, denying any knowledge of a private correspondence, fueling the fire further. But Jungkook didn't care about the headlines. He sat alone in the practice room, Jimin's voice playing on repeat, surrounded by walls that had once heard them laugh and dream and fight. And then, he finally cried not the explosive tears from the stage, but the quiet, suffocating kind. The kind that leaves you empty. Because Jimin had written him one last love letter, disguised as a goodbye. And the truth it carried had already begun to unravel everything they thought was safe. You knew, didn't you, Taehyung? Jungkook's voice tore through the practice room like broken glass, slicing through the quiet. He stood rigid near the window, knuckles white as they pressed against the ledge. Outside, rain smeared against the glass like tears that couldn't fall fast enough. You knew he was planning something and you didn't tell me. Taehyung didn't move from where he stood across the room, arms crossed over his chest, jaw clenched tight. His eyes flicked toward Jin, who stood between them, uncertain whether to intervene or let it all explode. I knew he was scared, Taehyung said quietly, but I didn't know he was going to disappear. Jungkook turned, fury igniting in his eyes. You're lying. I'm not. Taehyung's voice was low, steady, but his hands trembled by his sides. Then what the hell was the meeting you had with him 3 days before the concert? Huh? Jungkook stepped forward, voice rising. I saw you, outside the old rehearsal hall. Don't lie to me, Tae. Taehyung swallowed hard. He asked me to meet. He was unraveling, Kook. He said he couldn't breathe anymore under the weight of it all. The secrecy, the way they were watching him. Watching us. He didn't tell me details. Just that he was leaving something behind. Something that might help. That's all. Help? Jungkook's laugh was sharp and bitter. Help what? Destroy me in front of the world? Rip out my heart and broadcast it to millions? He was trying to protect you. Don't give me that crap, Jungkook's voice cracked. If he wanted to protect me, he would have talked to me, face to face. Not through a letter handed to me on stage like a goddamn plot twist. The room pulsed with tension, hot and suffocating. Jin exhaled sharply, stepping between them now. Stop, both of you. This isn't what he would have wanted. Jungkook's lips twisted. Don't tell me what he would have wanted. None of us know anymore. A heavy silence followed. Then Taehyung spoke again, softer now. There's more. Jungkook turned his head slowly, eyes narrowing. I went through his locker, Taehyung continued. His old one at the dorm. There was a flash drive taped underneath the bottom drawer. It had a folder named For Jungkook. Jin's eyebrows rose. Did you open it? Taehyung nodded. I didn't know if I should, but after everything, I had to. Jungkook's voice dropped to a whisper. What was on it? Taehyung's expression twisted into something complicated. Pain, guilt, disbelief. There were videos, voice notes, screenshots of text conversations between him and someone from Hybe Legal. Jungkook's breath caught. He was being threatened, Kook. Legally silenced. If he didn't distance himself from you, if he didn't comply with image directives, they were going to leak something. Jin's eyes darkened. What could they possibly leak worse than this? Taehyung looked at Jungkook, then away. Your messages, from when you were in Busan. The ones you sent Jimin. When you were struggling. When you were drinking. Jungkook said hollowly, completing the sentence for him. Taehyung nodded once. Jungkook sat down, like his legs had finally given out. They recorded everything, he murmured. Even back then, I thought I was safe. With him. They were watching both of you, Taehyung said. From the moment Dispatch caught you together at that rooftop cafe. After that, everything changed. Jungkook pressed his palms to his face, breathing unsteadily. So Jimin left to protect me from myself. No, Taehyung said firmly, sitting down across from him. He left because he was forced to choose between love and survival. And he thought the only way to keep you safe was to walk away. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Jungkook lifted his head. Play the rest of the audio. Taehyung pulled out his phone and played the second voice note. Jimin's voice crackled through the speaker, soft and trembling. Cook, I wish I was braver. I wish I could say this to your face, but every time I look at you, I forget how to breathe. They gave me a list of things to erase. Your name was at the top, but I couldn't. I couldn't delete you, even when I was supposed to. Jungkook's hands clenched into fists. I know what they're planning. They want to replace me. They already have someone in training. They're reshaping the narrative, turning us into something polished, soulless. You'll see it soon. The press releases, the interviews. It'll feel like we never existed. But I swear to you, we did. We were real. The audio ended. Tears fell freely from Jungkook's eyes now, silent and unstoppable. Taehyung looked away again. We can't let this die with him, Jungkook said, voice firm despite the tremor in his chest. We have to show the truth, everything. Jin frowned. They'll destroy your career. Maybe both of yours. Then let them, Jungkook snapped. I'd rather be destroyed for telling the truth than live a lie for the rest of my life. Taehyung met his gaze. Then we do it together. They made their plan that night. Jin called Namjoon. Taehyung reached out to Yoongi. One by one, the rest of the members were pulled into the fire. Not everyone agreed at first. Hoseok warned them about the consequences. RM begged for a more diplomatic route. But as the contents of the flash drive were revealed to each of them, silence turned into rage. Fear turned into resolve. They would expose everything. Hype's manipulation, the image control, the personal threats, the silencing contracts, the clause that broke Jimin. They prepared the files. They edited a video, narrated by Jungkook, intercut with Jimin's voice notes and text screenshots. The truth, laid bare. No edits, no PR spin. They uploaded it anonymously. Within minutes, it spread like wildfire. Protect Jimin began trending alongside Hype exposed. Fans cried. Some denied. Others pieced together older interviews, spotting hidden signals, veiled glances, moments that had once seemed harmless but now glowed with painful clarity. The backlash against Hype was immediate and brutal. Former staff came forward anonymously. A former legal assistant leaked internal memos. The company tried to deny, then pivot, then offer a clarifying statement. But it was too late. The world had seen Jungkook cry. They had heard Jimin's voice tremble. And now they demanded justice. Jungkook sat alone in his old room at the dorm, the one he used to share with Jimin. He picked up his phone and played the final voice note Jimin had left. If this ever reaches the light, I hope I can come home. Not to the stage, not to the cameras, just to you. He closed his eyes and whispered, Come home, Jimin, please. Even if the world was still burning, he would wait. Because some truths were worth losing everything for. And this love, this brutal, aching, unstoppable love, was one of them. Turn off your phone. The words came low and urgent, spoken with that unmistakable warning edge in Namjoon's voice. Jungkook didn't argue. He simply locked the screen and tossed it onto the nearest couch. His hands were still shaking, barely recovered from reading the legal threats that had poured in less than 24 hours after their anonymous video exploded across the internet. Hype was no longer subtle. It was war now. Taehyung stood by the window, peeking through the blinds like they were all fugitives. And in some ways, they were. The dorm, once a place of laughter and late-night snacks and chaotic singing, now felt like a bunker, a place of retreat, a hideout for people who knew they were being hunted by something far bigger than bad PR. They found the original Dropbox, Jin muttered from the dining table, eyes locked on his laptop. They're deleting everything from the source. If we hadn't saved backups to the drive, everything Jimin left us would be gone. They tried to make him disappear, Jungkook said, teeth clenched. Like he never existed. They're trying to do the same to you now. Yoongi added from the corner, his voice dark and eerily calm. Smear articles, pushed hashtags, claims you're unstable. That you broke down mentally. Jungkook let out a bitter laugh. They're not entirely wrong. No, Yoongi said. But they're making it sound like you're unfit, dangerous, like you shouldn't be on stage anymore. Namjoon crossed his arms, frustration radiating from every muscle. They're cornering you, Kook. The goal is to isolate you, force you to retreat, make it easier to control the story. Taehyung turned sharply. So what do we do? Just sit here and wait for them to crush us? No, Jungkook said firmly. We go on stage. Yoongi blinked. What? The Japan leg, Jungkook said. We don't cancel. We perform. Are you serious? Jin said, standing up. You want to step onto an international stage while the media is actively trying to kill your image? That's suicide. It's proof, Jungkook said, that I'm not afraid, that I'm not backing down, that I'm still me, and I'm not going to be erased like Jimin. The room fell quiet again. The weight of what he said soaked into the walls. I'm not performing, Namjoon said after a moment. Jungkook looked at him, surprised. I'm not going to stand on a stage and pretend this is normal, Namjoon said, his voice tired. Not after everything. Then don't pretend, Jungkook replied. None of us will. Let's show them the cracks. Let them see us as we are. The silence was different this time. Charged. Determined. When they arrived in Tokyo, it was chaos. Reporters swarmed the airport. Jungkook wore sunglasses, but he didn't hide. Not anymore. Behind him, Taehyung walked tall. Jin flanked him, calm but steely. Yoongi had his headphones in, but his hands were clenched. Only Namjoon stayed behind in Seoul, managing communication and legal buffers from a safe distance. The venue was packed. Some fans held up banners that said, "We believe you." Others were more confused, uncertain, or openly conflicted. But when the lights dimmed and Jungkook stepped forward in silence, the crowd went completely still. No music, just a single spotlight. Then his voice rang out. I was told not to speak. A murmur swept the stadium. I was told that honesty could destroy everything, that some things are better left unsaid. But the truth is, silence already destroyed something precious to me. The screen behind him flickered to life. Jimin's handwriting, the final letter. Then, his voice, the audio from the flash drive. The crowd gasped. Some cried. Others screamed in disbelief. Hybe tried to shut it down. Techs backstage got frantic calls. But Yoongi had rigged the system, preloaded the files directly to the screen controller, bypassing live edits. It couldn't be stopped. Jungkook kept speaking. I lost someone I loved, not because we stopped loving each other, but because they told us our love was inconvenient, a threat to image, a liability. It took a deep breath. So if loving someone truthfully is a threat, then consider me dangerous. The roar that followed wasn't applause. It was something deeper, an uprising. Taehyung stepped out next. No mic, just presence. He walked straight to Jungkook and stood beside him. Then Jin. Then Yoongi. No choreography. No pretense. Just unity. A security guard tried to move forward. Jin stepped down the stairs, raised a hand, and said something off mic. The guard froze. The cameras caught every second. This wasn't a concert. This was rebellion. Afterward, the press exploded. Jungkook calls out label on stage. BT's members break silence over controversial letter. Where is Jimin? Hybe's response was sterile, legally measured, and completely devoid of emotion. They claimed the letter was fabricated. That Jimin's silence was a private matter unrelated to internal management. That the unauthorized media displayed during the Tokyo performance is under legal review, but the damage had already spread. And something else was happening. A new email arrived in Jungkook's inbox that night. No name, no subject, just a voice note. He hesitated, then played it. The voice was shaky, but it was him, Jimin. If this reaches you, I saw what you did. I saw the concert. I didn't think you'd go that far. Kook, I don't know where this ends, but I remember where it began. On the rooftop, when you asked me if I could love you even if it meant losing everything. Jungkook's breath caught. I never stopped. The message ended. He dropped the phone and wept, not from pain, from hope. He looked at Taehyung, who had silently watched the entire thing. "He's alive," Jungkook said. "He's watching." Taehyung nodded. "Then it's time we bring him back." The silence in the room after Jimin's voice faded was not peace. It was the sound of blood rushing through Jungkook's veins, the sound of a dam beginning to crack. The phone still lay on the carpet where it had slipped from his hands, and no one in the room had moved. Taehyung's mouth was slightly parted, his eyes stuck on the screen. Jin was frozen on the edge of the sofa, unmoving, blinking only once. Yoongi stood by the wall, arms crossed tightly, jaw tensed. Jungkook bent slowly, picking up the phone with both hands as though it were the most fragile thing in the world. He looked up, his voice barely a whisper, but it held a weight that made the air heavy. "He's not just hiding." Taehyung nodded once, expression unreadable. "He's scared. He's in danger." That sentence hung like a shard of broken glass, suspended in air, glittering and sharp. No one wanted to say it out loud, but Jungkook did. He had to. Because the more he listened to Jimin's voice, the quiver, the pauses, the unspoken layers, it was clear this wasn't just a retreat or a hiatus. This was a cry from somewhere deeper, somewhere darker. Yoongi stepped forward. "We need to trace that message. That sender ID isn't random. It was routed through Japan, then rerouted through a VPN node in Germany, and the last bounce was Seoul." "So he's here," Jin said, eyes flickering with a mix of hope and fear. "Or someone wants us to think he is," Yoongi added. Jungkook ran both hands through his hair, pulling it back tightly. "I don't care where he is. We find him. I need to talk to him face to face. I need to look him in the eye and ask him everything he didn't say." "Hybe won't let that happen," Jin said flatly. "They've already restricted our movement. My passport was flagged. I checked." Taehyung pulled out his phone. "Mine too." Yoongi raised a brow. "They can't restrict all of us. We still have connections. We use them, quietly." "But what happens when we do find him?" Jin asked. "Do you think he'll just walk out of wherever he's hiding and come back? Do you really think it's that simple?" "No," Jungkook replied. "But I don't care." He looked up, fire returning to his voice. "If I have to break into Hybe headquarters with a camera crew and scream every truth they've buried, I will. I'll burn the entire foundation to the ground if that's what it takes to bring him home." Taehyung stared at him, hard. "Then let's make them bleed." And just like that, the plan was no longer about defense. It became war. The first thing they did was expose Clause 13.3 publicly, in full. Not as an anonymous leak. This time, it came from Jin and Yoongi, who sat down in a quiet studio with an indie journalist and gave the entire story. No edits, no fear. They released it like a nuclear bomb. Inside the idol machine, BTS breaks silence on contract control. The interview went viral within 6 hours. Social media fractured. Hybe scrambled with legal counterclaims, calling the interview defamatory, manipulated, and unauthorized. But they couldn't touch it. The video had already been mirrored and re-uploaded thousands of times by fans across the globe. Then came the real hit. Jungkook walked into a press conference room in Busan, alone, without a stylist. No label, no handlers. Just himself. He stood before the microphones and faced the cameras that had tried to break him. "My name is Jungkook," he began, "and I have nothing left to lose except the truth." He spoke for 9 minutes. His voice was steady, his body rigid, but the tremble in his fingers betrayed the storm inside. He told them everything. The threats, the silencing, the clause, the letter, the love, and Jimin. "I will not be complicit in the destruction of someone I love just to preserve a brand." When he walked off stage, his phone exploded. Armies wept. Others raged. But buried among the hundreds of thousands of messages was one, no name, no number, just 3 words. "Stop, they're listening." His breath hitched. He showed it to Yoongi immediately. "That's not from Jimin," Yoongi said. "The language is too different. This is from someone else. Someone inside." The next night, Taehyung received a package at the dorm. No sender, no return address. Inside, a small USB drive. A note taped to it. "Don't trust the new staff. Room 17, basement level 2. They moved him." Jungkook's vision darkened. Room 17. He knew that room. A soundproof space in the old Hybe training center. It had been turned into a wellness and reflection unit for idols dealing with burnout. But among the older staff, it had another name, the Quiet Room, a place where they sent you when you needed to reset. Jin cursed under his breath as soon as he read it. They're not just hiding him, they're detaining him. Jungkook's body shook as he stood. Then we go in tonight. No, Yoongi said. That's suicide. Then I'd be trying. No, we do it smart. Jin's voice cut through. We find someone on the inside. Someone who still remembers that we're human, not products. Jungkook's eyes locked with Taehyung's. There's one. Taehyung nodded slowly. Minji. Minji was a former vocal trainer, reassigned to internal counseling. She'd known Jimin personally. She was the only one who ever spoke up when contracts got rewritten. And she'd been silent for months. Too silent. They contacted her through encrypted chat. She didn't reply. Then, a single photo appeared in the chat feed. It was blurry, but unmistakable. Jimin, sitting alone, wrist wrapped in medical gauze. Head down, expression lost. They broke into the building the next night. Yoongi disabled the alarms. Jin handled the surveillance blind spots. Taehyung posed as a delivery tech. Jungkook wore a mask, hoodie, and gloves. Every step down that dim corridor was carved into Jungkook's memory with ice. Room 17. The door was unlocked. And inside, he saw him. Not through a screen. Not through a letter. Jimin, slumped in the corner of the room, his face gaunt, skin pale, eyes closed. For a moment, Jungkook couldn't breathe. Jimin, he whispered. The body stirred, slowly, painfully. And then those eyes opened. Red, haunted, but real. Jungkook? His voice cracked on the second syllable. Tears filled Jungkook's eyes as he rushed forward. It's me. It's me, Hyung. I'm here. Jimin blinked like it was a dream. They said you'd hate me. That you already moved on. I would have torn the sky apart if it meant finding you. Jimin reached out weakly. Their hands touched. And the room, heavy with suffering, drenched in silence, finally exhaled. But before they could escape, alarms blared across the basement. Hybe knew, and they were coming. Jungkook looked back only once, and whispered, even if I have to carry you out, I'm not leaving you behind. He picked Jimin up, and ran into the fire. Jungkook's boots slammed against the sterile linoleum floor as he ran, heart hammering against his ribs, lungs burning with adrenaline and fear. He didn't let go of Jimin, not for a second. Jimin was draped in his arms like a fragile thread barely held together. Too light, too cold. His arms hung limply around Jungkook's neck, head resting against his shoulder, breathing shallow. Behind them, the corridor lit up in flashing red. Emergency klaxons echoed through the narrow hallways of Hybe's underground level. The kind of alarm that wasn't meant for fire drills or casual evacuation. This was the kind meant for breaches, for containment failures, for leaks. Taehyung's voice cracked through Jungkook's earpiece, panting. Stairs east corridor 2 turns ahead. Jin's holding the elevator. Yoongi rerouted internal security for 60 seconds. That's all we've got. Jungkook didn't respond. He didn't need to. He could hear the footsteps growing louder behind him. Not just staff, guards, private ones. The kind Hybe only used when their brand was at risk. Not idols, not humans, just assets gone rogue. Kook. Jimin's voice was hoarse, barely audible, dry as a dying leaf. I've got you, Jungkook muttered, gripping him tighter. You're not going back in that room. Never again. I thought I'd never see you again. The words were small, fractured. Jungkook blinked back tears as he made the last turn. We're almost out, just hold on. They burst into the stairwell. Taehyung was there, sweat dripping down his temple, eyes wild, clutching a crowbar with both hands like a bat. He reached for the stair door, yanked it open, and held it as Jungkook barreled through with Jimin in his arms. Without a word, Taehyung fell in behind them, slamming the door shut and jamming the crowbar into the handle. Footsteps thudded on the other side. Shouts. We're not going to make it, Taehyung growled. They're coming up both sides. They won't touch him, Jungkook spat. He took the stairs 3 at a time, body aching, lungs splitting, but he never loosened his grip. Jimin moaned softly, blinking blearily, eyes glassy. They drugged him, Taehyung said breathlessly. You see his pupils? I know, Jungkook said. He's burning up. Fever. The top floor. They emerged into the lobby. Yoongi's voice screamed through the comm. Now. Now. They've locked down exits. Emergency hatch behind the west wall reception desk. I looped the cameras. Go. Jin stood by the elevator, holding a fire axe he'd ripped from a glass box. His tie was torn. His jaw was bruised. They tried to stop me, he said. Are you okay? Jungkook asked. Better than them. Jin lifted the hatch behind the reception desk, a steel trap door built for fire emergencies. But now the only way out. Taehyung dropped to his knees, lifting the panel. Cold air rushed in from the underground service duct. Yoongi's voice returned. You've got 30 seconds before the main feed comes back online. They'll see everything. Jungkook slid in with Jimin cradled against his chest. Cover him, he said. I'll take rear. Jin and Taehyung followed, replacing the panel. They were in. The air inside the tunnel was frigid and metallic, thick with dust and old secrets. They crawled through the dark, their breaths loud and ragged. Jimin's lips moved faintly, but no words came out. Jungkook pressed his forehead to his and whispered, You held on for me. Just a little longer, Hyung. I'm not losing you now. Suddenly, the light behind them flickered. Boots hit metal. They're in the shaft, Jin hissed. Move faster, Taehyung said. Go, go. They scrambled. 10 meters ahead, a great Yoongi's voice again. Left. Push the second panel. Hidden exit to the old trainee dorm. You'll blend in with night traffic. Jungkook kicked the panel hard. It gave way. They emerged behind the old rehearsal wing, disguised by a row of industrial trash bins. A delivery van pulled up to the alley. The driver stepped out. It was Hosek, wearing black, hoodie up, and eyes blazing. Get in. They threw open the doors. Jungkook climbed in first, laying Jimin across the seat, pulling his jacket over him. The others piled in. Hosok slammed the door shut. The van screeched out into the night. No words were spoken for the first 10 minutes. Just the hum of wheels, the pounding of hearts, the flickering hope that they had done the impossible. Jungkook sat cradling Jimin like he was made of porcelain. His skin was damp. His breathing was uneven. Taehyung wiped blood from his own elbow, voice trembling. What the hell were they doing to him in there? Reprogramming, Yoongi muttered from the passenger seat. That's what they called it. Same thing they tried on a soloist 2 years ago when he spoke out. You remember what happened to him? He disappeared, Jin said darkly. Label said he quit. But his parents never got a final call. Silence. Until Jimin stirred. His lips moved again. Cold. Jungkook pulled him tighter, gripping his hand. I'm here. Didn't think you'd come. I'd burn the world for you. They said, you signed the clause. Jungkook's eyes burned. No, I signed nothing. I fought. I'm still fighting. Jimin's eyes fluttered open slowly. He looked at Jungkook, like seeing him for the first time. You were on stage. You heard it? I heard everything. And for a moment, the walls cracked. The despair loosened. The ghost between them faded. Then Hosok spoke. They know we took him. They'll retaliate. Let them, Taehyung said. The world already saw the fire. Now we show them the ashes. Jungkook looked at Jin. What's the plan? Jin stared out the window. We leaked the quiet room footage, the medication records, Jimin's full testimony. We turn it all into one single drop. Yoongi nodded. And we release it during the CEO's anniversary broadcast. Jungkook exhaled. Then looked at Jimin. I need your voice. Jimin didn't hesitate. Then I'll speak. Later that night, in a hidden room in an old hotel far from Seoul's city center, they set up a single camera. One light. One chair. One boy who had been broken and survived. Jimin sat before the lens, pale, worn, but unflinching. And he began, My name is Park Jimin. And they tried to erase me. The world would never be the same again. The light was harsh and unflinching, casting long shadows behind the fragile body in the chair. Jimin blinked slowly beneath it, not because it was too bright, but because the silence demanded so much more than the words he was about to say. It wasn't a press conference. There were no reporters, no script, no makeup, no backup dancers or stylists or music to carry him. Just a camera and the truth. Jungkook stood behind the lens, arms folded tightly over his chest, jaw clenched so hard he thought it might crack. Jin and Taehyung sat just outside the shot, ready to intervene if Jimin faltered. But he didn't. Not even as his fingers trembled in his lap. "My name is Park Jimin," he said, voice quiet but clear. And I was forced into silence. He took a breath. The kind that hurt on the way out. The kind that reminded him he was still alive, even after everything they'd done to him. "I've been part of BTS since I was a teenager. I gave my youth, my health, and my voice to a system that promised us brotherhood but delivered surveillance. We were told we were a family, but families don't wiretap conversations. Families don't monitor texts. Families don't rewrite contracts in the dark." Jungkook's throat constricted. He wanted to run to him, to hold his hand as he spoke, but he knew better. This moment had to be Jimin's. Completely. "They told me who I could love," Jimin continued, a tear sliding silently down his cheek. "They told me who I was allowed to care about. What kind of affection was marketable? What kind wasn't?" He looked into the camera directly now. "I loved Jungkook, and I never asked permission." The air in the room shifted. Even Yoongi, who had been silent and still against the wall, lowered his head, pressing a hand over his mouth. Jimin went on. "They threatened to erase me, to shut me in a room until the love turned to silence, until I agreed to return and play their version of me." He paused, then laughed. It was bitter. Hushed, "I refused." And that was when the footage cut in security cam video Yoongi had extracted from the quiet room. Jimin slumped against the wall, ignored by passing medical staff. Clips of medication charts showing dosages meant for sedation. Footage of him staring blankly at the wall, blinking once every 10 seconds, barely present. Then the handwritten note slipped beneath his door. The one he wrote, over and over again. "I still remember who I am." The video returned to the present. Jimin, staring at the camera with more fire than he had shown in years. "And now I remember everything." The rest of the group sat together after they uploaded the video. No label, no platform, just them. They posted it on a newly created public site called Let Them Speak, anonymously registered through layers of privacy encryption. But everyone knew who was behind it. The response was not measured. It was nuclear. Within 3 hours, the site crashed from traffic. By morning, hashtags like Jimin Truth and BTS Unmasked trended #1 worldwide. International media scrambled for translations, reactions, follow-ups. Within 24 hours, nearly every entertainment contract from major K-pop agencies came under renewed scrutiny. Politicians spoke out. Former idols began anonymously sharing their stories, some confirming Jimin's timeline, others exposing worse. But with attention came danger. Yoongi returned to their hideout after a quick food run with his hand bleeding. Someone had slashed his car tires. Jin's family home was suddenly surveilled. Taehyung's older brother was detained at the airport for routine questioning. Jungkook received 2 death threats via untraceable burner accounts. The calm before the storm was over. This was the storm. "We need to go bigger," Jin said, pacing. "They're going to spin this, claim Jimin's unstable, that it was dramatized. They'll even say he was drugged into hallucinating. Then we give them something they can't refute," Taehyung replied. "Something from inside." "A whistleblower," Yoongi muttered. "Minji." They reached out again. This time, she responded. A voice message. "I can't meet in public. They're watching everything. But there's a drive. I hid it. If you find it, you'll have enough. Their signature. Their meetings. The clause edits. Everything." Her voice cracked. "But if you go after this, you'll never go back to who you were before." Jungkook picked up the phone. "I already can't," he said. The address was a small music studio in Gangnam, long abandoned and rebranded under a new name. They arrived in the middle of the night, moving like shadows. The drive was taped under the piano, an old grand Yamaha, its keys yellowed by time. The files were there. Dozens. Scanned memos. Transcripts. Secret board meetings. A private recording between high executives talking about non-compliance risks. And emotional entanglement clauses. One voice stood out. It was the CEO himself. Jeon, Jungkook, and Park Jimin represent the highest instability factor in our post-Map of the Soul projections. Their bond has exceeded controllable branding value. If left unchecked, they could fracture the entire illusion we've worked to sell. Jin closed the file and exhaled sharply. He admitted it, out loud. "That's our bullet," Taehyung said. But it wasn't enough. Jungkook shook his head. "No, we show it all. but we do it where the world can't ignore it. What are you thinking? Yoongi asked. The MMA stage, Jungkook said. We hijack it. Impossible, Jin said. They'll blacklist you. You'll be physically removed. Let them try. MMA, the Melon Music Awards. One of the biggest annual events in the industry. Broadcast globally. The perfect place to strike. They forged an application. Faked acceptance letters through an inside contact. The team was small, just Jungkook, Taehyung, Jin, and Yoongi on stage. Jimin would be protected, watching from a private, undisclosed location with Hoseok and Namjoon. The night arrived. The arena glowed in gold and violet lights. Thousands screamed as familiar faces crossed the red carpet. But as the show reached its midpoint, and the hosts announced an unexpected legacy stage, something shifted. The lights cut. A single spotlight. Jungkook walked out alone. Silence fell like a blade. He wore black. New embellishments. New designer flash. Just truth. He held a mic. Behind him, screens flickered. The same ones that once broadcast love songs and polished smiles now displayed legal memos and contracts. I'm not here to perform, he said. Gasps. I'm here to confess. And he told them everything. Not just Jimin's story, but his. He spoke about the fear, the years of pretending, the silent pain, the denial of identity, the pressure to smile while bleeding. Then Taehyung joined him, then Jin, then Yoongi, and finally, the screens lit up again. Jimin's face. Live. In real time. Hello, he said to millions. I'm alive. And I remember everything they tried to erase. The arena erupted. Cameras cut to static. Broadcast feeds were pulled, but it was too late. The world had seen. That night, HYBE's stock dropped 23%. That week, an emergency hearing was called in Korea's National Assembly. It started with a blackout. Not in Seoul, not on national television, but inside HYBE's own network. At exactly 3:12 a.m., their internal servers went offline. Employee badges stopped working. Emails bounced. Surveillance cameras froze. And the moment the digital wall collapsed, an anonymous whistleblower leaked hundreds of unredacted documents to the global press, all of them bearing one name repeatedly, Jeon Jungkook. And one more, buried in almost every classified report, Park Jimin. The documents told a story no entertainment company had ever admitted to. Identity manipulation clauses, emotional suppression mandates, and staged media scandals as distraction strategies. Embedded audio clips captured board meetings describing Jimin's non-conformity as a liability. Photographs, time-stamped, showed the interior of room 17 before it was sanitized. Medication records proved Jimin had been dosed without consent. By sunrise, international news outlets had already declared it the biggest entertainment industry leak in South Korea's history. Jungkook woke to the sound of pounding fists on the door. He was at a small rented house on the outskirts of Incheon, the fifth safe house they had moved into within a month. His eyes snapped open. Taehyung was already halfway to the door, phone in hand, checking the live feed from the outside cameras. Yoongi had a kitchen knife in his hand. Jin grabbed the emergency go bag. Who is it? Jungkook demanded. Hoseok's voice called from outside. It's me! Open up! It's everywhere! Taehyung unlocked the door with a sharp flick of his wrist. Hoseok stumbled in, his hoodie soaked from the rain, eyes wide and frantic. He tossed a tablet onto the kitchen table and pulled up the leaked document archive. This isn't just the letter. It's not just about the quiet room. Someone leaked the entire internal investigation logs. Everything. Every single conversation about you. Every threat, every suppressed scandal, it's all out now. Jungkook leaned over the tablet. His hands trembled as he scrolled. The screen showed an email from HYBE's senior legal counsel labeled Risk Management Report. JJPJ, Unstable Relationship Trajectory. The words blurred. They documented our relationship like it was a virus, he whispered. Jin glanced up, his face pale. They had psychological profiles on each of us, risk assessments, projected emotional responses. They had planned the media downfall of Jimin over 6 months before the letter, Yoongi added. They were just waiting for a mistake to exploit. Taehyung looked toward the back of the house. where Jimin was still asleep in the next room. He never made the mistake, he said. They did. The air grew heavier. Jungkook stood up. I want to talk to him. He walked quietly down the hallway and opened the door. Jimin lay under layers of blankets, his face still bruised from lack of sleep, his skin pale, but his chest rose and fell steadily. As the door creaked, he stirred. His eyes opened slowly, and when they locked on Jungkook, something flickered recognition. Yes, but also sorrow. You saw it? He asked softly. Jungkook nodded. Jimin sat up slowly, wincing. I didn't want it to come out this way. It had to, Jungkook replied. We never had control of the story. Until now. Jimin's fingers curled over the edge of the blanket. You know what they're going to do, right? They'll try to make us disappear. Even harder now. I know, Jungkook said. A beat passed. Then let's disappear together, Jimin said, voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook stared at him. The weight of that sentence wasn't lost on either of them. But before either could speak again, the front door crashed open. Yoongi shouted, "Down!" Jungkook shielded Jimin instinctively, throwing his body over him. Heavy boots rushed into the house. But it wasn't police. It wasn't hype guards. It was reporters. Real ones. Masked. Desperate. Loud. Jungkook? Jimin? Please, just one comment. Is it true about the illegal sedation? Do you plan to sue Hybe? Cameras flashed. Jin slammed the hallway door shut. Hosea grabbed a broom and shoved the nearest cameraman back. Taehyung yelled, "Get out!" Yoongi reached for the emergency switch and triggered the shutters. Metal slammed down over the windows, and the front door locked automatically. The lights flickered. Damn it, Jin muttered. The hideout's blown. Jungkook helped Jimin up. They won't stop now, he said. They've smelled blood. Yoongi nodded. Then we give them the whole body. That night, they went live. Not through press. Not through a label. Through their own voice. A live stream. No music. No stylists. Just 5 faces in a darkened room. Jungkook, Jimin, Taehyung, Jin, and Yoongi. Jungkook spoke first. We've been silent long enough. The chat exploded with millions of viewers. Comments scrolled so fast they couldn't be read. Armies, journalists, other idols, former staff. Jimin took the mic. I never asked to be a symbol, he said, but they made me one. A symbol of what happens when you love too much, too openly, in a system that only wants perfection. His voice cracked, but I don't regret it. Jungkook placed his hand over Jimin's. And I don't regret you. Jin cleared his throat and read aloud the official statement they'd prepared, something the press wouldn't be able to twist. A demand for legal inquiry. A call for reform in the entertainment industry. A declaration of independence. And then Yoongi pulled out a file. A physical one. The final piece, he said. The severance contracts. Proof that they intended to replace Jungkook and Jimin with trained lookalikes. Fabricated soloists. New names. Rewritten lyrics. Songs already assigned. Photos already edited. This wasn't just erasure. It was identity theft. They showed it all. The broadcast lasted 92 minutes. When they ended the stream, silence returned, but only for a moment. Then the world caught fire. Hybe's CEO was summoned for investigation within 48 hours. Fan protests shut down company buildings. Shareholders began liquidating. And quietly, in the background, a class action lawsuit began forming. Names long buried began to surface. Old trainees, former idols who vanished, stylists who were silenced. All of them resurfaced, holding hands through the cracks. Jungkook and Jimin didn't speak for 2 days. Not out of fear, but peace. Real peace. They walked barefoot on the beach behind a private villa lent to them by a Japanese artist they'd once mentored. The wind was cold. The sky was gray. But it was real. Do you regret loving me? Jimin asked. Jungkook shook his head. I regret not fighting for it sooner. Jimin smiled faintly. Then let's never stop. And for the first time in years, there was no script. No lights. Just the sea. And a promise written in the waves. The courtroom smelled like varnished wood, metal filings and fear. Not the loud, panicked fear of running footsteps or slammed doors, but the quiet kind. The kind that sat beneath your ribs and whispered that even if you told the truth, no one would believe you. Jungkook sat in the second row behind the plaintiff's table. His hands folded so tightly in his lap that his knuckles had gone white. His mouth was dry. The courtroom was silent except for the soft click of microphones and the occasional shuffle of paper from legal clerks. Outside, the protesters roared like a tidal wave behind the courthouse barricades. Inside, not even breathing felt safe. At the front of the room, standing under the weight of the world's expectations and her own exhaustion, Minji adjusted her glasses and looked directly at the defense team representing Hybe Corporation. "I was told to watch them," she said simply. "Every word, every look." The lead attorney shifted. "You're referring to the plaintiffs, correct?" "Yes," Minji said, voice unwavering. Jungkook, Park Jimin, and, at the time, Kim Taehyung by proxy. There was no outrage in the room. No gasp. That came later. Right now, the moment clung to the air like humidity before a lightning strike. "Did you report any rule violations to your superiors?" Minji's fingers fidgeted. She hesitated for the first time. "Yes. Can you be specific?" She nodded slowly, lips trembling before she found her strength again. Jungkook once stayed longer than curfew in Jimin's room. Twice. There were hugs off camera, unscheduled late-night walks, whispered conversations after rehearsals. They laughed in spaces that were meant to be neutral. That was seen as emotional entanglement. And how was that treated? Minji's gaze dropped. "Like infection. I was told to monitor them, like I was observing a virus, one that could spread and compromise the company's brand purity. I was given a checklist, words to report, gestures to note. Were you aware of the plan to relocate Park Jimin to room 17? Minji nodded. "And did you approve of this?" Her jaw trembled before she said no. The room held its breath. "And when you refused, what happened?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "They reassigned me. Took my clearance. Then they sent me on a 6-week mental recovery leave. My badge didn't work when I came back, and I was told my keycard error was due to a glitch." Jungkook's jaw clenched. Taehyung shifted beside him, rage rising in the way his fingers tapped his knee, methodically, like a drumbeat made of gunpowder. Minji lifted her eyes, and for the first time in public, she addressed Jungkook directly. They thought if they isolated him, he'd eventually forget what you meant to him. Jungkook's lips parted slightly, but he didn't speak. "They underestimated him," she said. Across the room, the CEO of Hybe sat with his hands folded on the table, expression unreadable. His attorneys whispered rapidly in his ears, but he didn't flinch. His eyes flicked to Jungkook. There was no apology in them, only calculation. The judge leaned forward. "We will take a 20-minute recess. Upon return, the plaintiffs will be allowed to read their joint statement." Outside, chaos erupted. Camera crews, screaming reporters, army fan banners plastered against police shields, news helicopters circling like vultures above a battlefield. Protesters waved signs demanding justice. Others cried openly. Inside the courthouse's private chambers, Jungkook stood in front of the mirror, fixing the collar of his simple black suit. Jimin walked in behind him. He looked pale, but steady, silent, but certain. "You don't have to do this," Jimin said softly. Jungkook turned, locking eyes with him in the mirror. "I already did." When court reconvened, all cameras were allowed in. Live streaming across all networks, every major Korean station, international outlets, Twitter feeds, TikTok clips, even radio. The judge gestured. "You may proceed." Jungkook stood, and so did Jimin. Jungkook opened the folder. "My name is Jungkook. I'm not here as an idol, or an ambassador, or a product. I'm here as a human being." He paused, looked up. "I fell in love with someone who reminded me that I was more than a voice on stage. And for that, I was punished." It continued. "They told me what to wear, when to smile, when to speak, but they never asked who I was, and when I told them, they told me to keep quiet." Jimin's voice joined his. "My name is Park Jimin, and I did keep quiet, for too long." The court stirred. Even some of the jury blinked hard, visibly moved. I believed them when they said that truth was dangerous. I believed them when they said love was liability. But I don't believe that anymore. They both turned toward the judge. "We ask not only for justice," Jimin said, "but for change. For every trainee who was told they were replaceable. For every idol who cried into a hotel pillow and smiled the next morning." The judge nodded solemnly. The court fell silent again. And then, A door slammed. One of the Hybe legal aides rushed in, whispering frantically to the defense attorney. He paled. "Your Honor," the defense attorney said, standing. "In light of new information, we request an immediate recess and a closed-door discussion." The judge arched a brow. "On what grounds?" "There has been a breach. The press has uncovered surveillance footage taken inside Hybe's executive boardroom. Private recordings, allegedly featuring conversations directly contradicting statements made under oath." Jin sat up straighter in the gallery. Yoongi's lips curved in the faintest hint of satisfaction. The judge's gavel fell once. 15-minute recess. My chambers. Now. As chaos exploded inside the courtroom, Jungkook turned to Jimin. "That's it. The last nail." But Jimin didn't smile. He looked down. "There's something I haven't told you." Jungkook's heart stopped. "What?" "Back in the quiet room," Jimin said softly. "They made me sign something." "What?" "It was a retroactive confession, stating that you pressured me, that you manipulated me into a relationship. They said if I didn't sign it, they'd go after your family." Jungkook's throat burned. "You didn't." "I did." The room tilted. Jungkook stepped back like he'd been punched. "I burned it later," Jimin said quickly. "Minji smuggled it out for me. It's gone. But for 3 days, that lie existed on paper." Jungkook looked at him, breath shallow. "You thought I would let you protect me like that? I didn't have a choice." "You did," Jungkook said quietly. "And you chose to hurt yourself instead of trust me." Jimin's eyes filled. "I didn't want to lose you." "You almost did." Jungkook turned away, heart fracturing all over again. Not from betrayal. From the unbearable pain of knowing Jimin still believed he had to be a martyr to be worthy of love. The silence between them stretched for hours, until the judge returned. "And read the verdict. Hybe Corporation was found guilty of multiple human rights violations, illegal surveillance, emotional coercion, and psychological abuse. Damages were awarded. Executives resigned. Some were arrested on the spot." The courtroom exploded in cheers. But Jungkook didn't smile. He sat, numb, still unable to look at Jimin. Because justice had come. But the boy he loved had still signed a lie to protect him. And love, even when righteous, still carried scars. That night, while fireworks lit up Seoul in celebration, Jungkook sat on the rooftop of the safe house, staring at the stars. Jimin climbed the steps silently. He sat beside him. No words, just space. "I'm sorry," he said finally. Jungkook looked at him. "I never wanted to be the reason you bled." "You never were," Jimin whispered. "They were, but you didn't trust me to bleed with you." Jimin looked down. "I do now," he said. And then, finally, the distance cracked. Jungkook took his hand, and for the first time in years, they sat in peace. Not as idols, not as victims, but as two boys who survived and learned that even truth needs healing. The day the building reopened, the air smelled like smoke and polish. It wasn't literal fire, they had put those out months ago, but it was the scent of an institution trying too hard to look untouched. Hybe's headquarters now stood like a scar with makeup over it. The pristine lobby floors shining too bright, the front desk crew too rehearsed, as if they weren't sitting on the ruins of a legacy torn open by its own hands. Jungkook hadn't stepped inside the building since the trial. He hadn't needed to. His career no longer answered to a boardroom. His life no longer waited for permission. But now he stood in front of the executive elevator with a keycard in his hand and a letter in his pocket. The key had been sent anonymously, delivered to the safe house 3 nights ago, wrapped in a black envelope with no return address. The card carried a room number, basement level 4, storage wing C. Inside, the letter had been short. "You need to see it before they erase it." Jungkook hadn't told anyone. Not Jimin, not Taehyung, not even Yoongi. He didn't want another conversation about safety or risks or being watched. He didn't want anyone else to carry the weight of what might be at the end of that corridor. The elevator chimed. He stepped in alone. The walls buzzed slightly with hidden security frequencies as he descended. His reflection stared back at him older than he remembered. Leaner, eyes darker, not just with exhaustion, but with something harder. The innocence was gone. It had been burned away by trial transcripts and therapy sessions, and watching the person he loved break in front of him more than once. When the doors opened, the hallway was dimly lit and cold. It didn't feel like the rest of the building. No music, no polished LED screens looping cheerful group ads, just gray concrete and silence. Storage Wing C. He walked down the narrow aisle, passing dusty doors and boxes stacked shoulder high. A red security light blinked softly every 10 feet. At the end of the corridor was a single locker door. Number 307. He inserted the key. The lock clicked. Inside was a single box. Not large, not locked. He pulled it out, knelt slowly, and opened it with careful hands. Inside were things he hadn't seen in years. A black notebook with the initials PJ embossed in gold. A pair of shoes Jimin had worn during their 2019 tour, still stained with sand from a beach night they'd never told anyone about. A USB drive wrapped in a napkin, and beneath it all, a letter addressed to him. Handwritten, no envelope, just his name, Jungkook. He unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was Jimin's, but not recent. This was from before the scandal, before Room 17, before anything broke. If you're reading this, I didn't know if I'd have the courage to say it out loud, but I need you to know before it's too late. I've loved you for longer than I've admitted to myself, but I've also been afraid for both of us. I've watched you carry expectations like they were feathers, while they buried me in them like bricks. I didn't know how to hold your hand without making it political. I didn't know how to tell you without costing us everything. But if you ever find this, I hope by then you already knew. Jungkook's hands trembled. The ink had run in places, like Jimin had cried while writing it. I hope you know that even in silence, I was always singing for you. He folded the letter slowly and pressed it against his chest. He stayed there for several minutes, kneeling beside the open box, breathing quietly. Then he stood, took the USB, and left the rest untouched. He wasn't going to erase Jimin's past. He was going to add to it. Back at the house, Jimin was on the balcony when he returned. His hair had grown longer. He wore one of Jungkook's old hoodies and held a mug of tea he hadn't touched. When he saw Jungkook, he stood without a word. Jungkook walked up to him and took both of Jimin's hands in his. "I found it," he said. Jimin blinked slowly. "Found what?" "The letter. The real first one. You never sent it." Jimin's eyes flickered. "You read it?" "I read it." A long pause stretched between them. "I wasn't brave then," Jimin said, voice barely above a whisper. "I thought loving you quietly was safer than loving you loudly." Jungkook shook his head, tears threatening. "But I would have loved you either way." "I know," Jimin said, his voice cracking. "But I didn't." Jungkook kissed his forehead gently. "You do now." That night, they played the USB on the living room monitor. The contents weren't just old practice footage or music. It was audio,